Welcome back to Pop Kannon. This is episode 62. We are your hosts. My name is Jordan.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Joe.
Today we are discussing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yeah, we are. Only in theaters, this film, specifically.
I got my shoes stuck to the floor for the first time in 2 years.
Yes, dude.
I don't think they've cleaned that theater that I was in once since the pandemic started.
But it was a great experience. I had a great time. It was so much fun. I literally skipped from the bathroom to the theater before it started, so I was like so excited.
I feel bad saying it, but like Black Widow didn't really like get me excited for like what's coming from the MCU, but like this having like kind of unrelated to the rest of the universe, or like the trappings of the rest of the universe story and an origin story again, to be like, okay, there's still more to get out of this world was really exciting for me. And like the fact that there's like now more seeds for the future being planted, that are not just like kind of a revamp of the past where it's like, oh, well, there's another Black Widow now. Like I like having a new hero that I can get behind. And I think they definitely delivered tenfold.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore, honestly, because Shang-Chi really surprised me because I had no expectations going into it. I had no knowledge of the character. I'm not really a Marvel guy. I'm more a DC person, but really enjoy everything that Marvel's been putting out, especially lately. Yeah. This really solidified the fact that Marvel's back in a big, bad way. They forged, a new path, like Joe said, from the past, where they fall into the trappings of previous stories or even a Tony Stark villain or some sort of connection. And this felt fresh. This felt new. This felt exciting. And it was really a perfect reset for the MCU in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I didn't have any expectations. The trailers were great. I just didn't know what to expect out of a film that featured the stuff that we saw in that trailer. This movie was magical. I felt like there was just, when the credits hit, my first thought, and I texted you guys immediately, I was like, that was fucking incredible. That was my first thought. Like, once it was over, I was like, man, we covered a lot of ground. We got a lot of backstory, but not too much, because there's a lot of questions still. But there's so much room, like you had said, to grow and to go forward with the knowledge that we get in this movie about other dimensions existing, like on Earth and all of that crazy shit, and eldritch horror fucking Lovecraftian. I know that that's an actual character from the comic books.
Yeah, but just the design of that, like we've never seen anything that like gross looking in the MCU.
I loved it.
And even like the like good magical creatures, like the design of all of Talo was just fucking amazing. Which like it's a little bit like depressing that we didn't get there till like the end of the movie, because like I do want to see more of that world and those creatures.
I'd prefer to spend a lot more time there than San Francisco, that's for fucking sure.
They were like, we don't have the budget to animate this for like 2 hours, so let's just save it for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Some of like the effects in the beginning of the movie looked like a little rough, like when like the car like falls off the cliff. It was like, okay, that was like a little goofy looking, but then you see like the big foo dog and you're like, okay, this is where the effects went, and that was amazing.
I mean, like just like right out of the gate, there's just so much action in this, but somehow they also fit so much of the story in it.
Oh yeah.
Like normally you either tilt towards one or the other and the other suffers. I don't think either suffered in this film somehow.
I think they really meshed well too. Like the action becomes a part of those conflicts because of the nature of those characters and their upbringing and their training. They're able to bring like the drama into the action. Yeah, in a really great way.
I absolutely loved it. I saw everybody, like there were a bunch of people asking on Twitter and Instagram, does this hit like top 10 MCU? And I can't say yes yet because I want to watch it again. Yeah. I want to watch it again. Yeah. But I don't think that that's a negative for it at all. It's just with how many films in the MCU we've gotten already, cracking that top 10 it's because it's almost like cemented together.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, but I think that this absolutely has the potential upon rewatch to get there. And then for other people, this is probably immediately at the top for them because they got to see themselves in it.
Yeah.
I've never really been like a big like kung fu movie guy, but this made me want to go watch more just because of like the first fight between his parents definitely felt very like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But then like the bamboo scaffolding fight, that was like a very like Jackie Chan feeling.
Rush Hour 2.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's a thing like I'd like to explore more of like what those references were. And like I like that. I've always liked when Marvel does that like multiple genre thing. They're like, this is a superhero movie, but it's also this was a kung fu movie.
That's when Marvel really succeeds, when they're not like, this is just a superhero film. This is several things, and I love that.
That's why we love Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It's 3 different films that are not superhero movies together. Yeah. And that's why it's awesome. And I think that this definitely, like you said, because the fight with his parents, man, I just felt it. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it was about the way it was shot, or like the score was awesome throughout, but especially in that, like, they created a vibe in that scene, and I just was sucked into it. Totally sucked into it. Like, I felt the emotions that they were like they just really got me in that scene, like to underscore the toe drag behind the back over and over again, to then when you get to the climax and Shang-Chi does it, I fucking lost my shit in the theater when he did that. I was like, he's gonna do both. Like, I loved everything about that.
Yeah, that entire fight sequence between the two of them was so beautiful. That scene alone, if you just take and put that by itself without any other context of the movie, and you're like, this is what this movie like encapsulates. It's so great. There's emotion in it. The camera work is fire. Like, it's so good, so smooth.
And they did a great job of showing off all of the techniques and the fighting. Marvel's like been pretty good about it, but like it's always like those like quick cuts to kind of hide the stunts. But like this was showcasing as real as it could be, this fighting.
I feel like what they did with this, and I don't know that they've done it previously, which probably helped this feel a little bit different, was rather than the quick cuts and the frenetic editing where you're all over the scene trying to see what's happening, instead of doing that, they zoomed in on the hand fighting and where the positioning was and all of that stuff, so it felt so different, like, because you're able to accomplish the same thing in that you could have doubles do it if you need to when you zoom in, because you can't see otherwise. It was just so much more effective, I felt like, because I don't feel like they did any of the shaky cam stuff or any of that crazy editing that they normally do to get the fight sequences out there. Like, it felt like they let them kind of go, but you were tighter on the action than we normally are. Yeah.
And I think that's a part of the genre as well. Is that like this is a kung fu movie, so like you're here to see that choreography, you're here to see the technique, and like they all did amazing.
Yeah. And like I was saying before about the camera placement and things like that, like you had a very incredible understanding of that spatial awareness. So that way, when you did go in, you didn't get lost when they were moving around. You got to appreciate that choreography, and it felt like a dance almost at one point between the two of them, and just throughout the movie. Like, and that's why I feel like it's so much more graceful, because you're seeing this type of fighting, and it's not just combat. It's not just throwing punches and kicks for the sake of punches.
Nobody
and
had
kicks.
a rocket launcher.
And there's just something so beautiful about that to me. That's why I think this movie stands out and is something special, and is something that could be in the top 10 for someone.
While still bringing like the Marvel like glowing weapons and glowing armor to it. But like that's something I guess you can't avoid. Like I don't think a lot of it was necessary, but you just kind of accept it at this point from Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Well, because what we get information-wise of the Ten Rings, like that organization, like you just kind of assume that over time they've amassed some sort of technology that can make all their hooky things electric. But I had the thought yesterday after I saw it that it's possible that when they went into it, they didn't necessarily have those hooks and those batons that the Ten Rings were using when they were attacking, specifically in the scaffolding fight. It's possible they didn't have the idea to do them electric up to that point, and they were like, we need additional lighting for this sequence, and we could possibly utilize those to help out with that. Because it was a very dark scene.
Yeah.
It was.
I think part of that was to like showcase the environment too.
Yeah, they did like the environmental lighting of like the city, but I still think maybe it was too dark. So in that sequence, when you light those up now there's more light being projected onto everybody's face.
That sequence, that scaffolding sequence, I think is my favorite scene in the movie.
They utilize the trope, like it's like Joe had mentioned, it's a Jackie Chan thing, and I'm sure he's done it in several films. I know that I've seen it at least in Rush Hour 2.
I think Jackie Chan said in an interview like he loves fighting on scaffolding.
Like, yeah, because there's so many options, and what Simu Liu was able to do is so similar to how Jackie Chan navigates in those scaffolding fights.
Anytime he like swings off of something to like boost his speed was just so satisfying to watch. I don't know why. It was just like it got like the kid in me so excited.
When he's running on the bus and he slides and swings to the door, I thought that scene was great.
Like they advertised the hell out of that, and I thought I was going to be sick of it by the time I saw it, but like seeing it start to finish was so satisfying. And they gave him the like hero moment to like get everybody to the right side of the bus, and I'm like, cool.
yeah, like that whole thing was very like heart pounding. Like that whole sequence like got your blood pressure like holy shit, because there were so many moments where it could have gone wrong throughout, and he was able to just dominate. I don't know. Like,
and that was also like the moment I like started to like Awkwafina, because like I don't know why, like Awkwafina's humor just like kind of grates at me.
Yeah,
but like, and especially like the beginning of this movie while they're in San Francisco, like a lot of the like meant to be like funny and cute parts just didn't really land. Like the comedic timing between them just wasn't there for me. But then like by the end they had me. So like once they like called back to the karaoke thing again, I was like, okay, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I'd like to like on like a rewatch, like now that I do care about these characters, I'm interested to see how I feel about that first like 20 minutes.
Yeah. See, I liked her immediately from the beginning for some reason, and not even necessarily because I knew who she was, because I really didn't. But she won me over, and I think just the way that she was delivering her lines, the quick timing of it, like she was really good, and Katie as a character I think was my favorite in this movie for me.
Yeah, she cracked me up throughout. I know that she has that show on Comedy Central, Nora from Queens, that I only have ever seen ads for. I've never seen it. But I watched Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah.
And she's one of the principal voice actors in that.
She's the dragon.
She's the dragon. Yeah. She's the last dragon. Spoilers until the end. But no, she in that movie she kind of plays a similar role in that she's the comedic relief to the main character that's kind of more of the straight person to it. And she does like a really good job at it, man.
Yeah.
Like she was funny as fuck in this. And I mean, I know that people have that like grating issue with her, because I feel that too for sure. And I could see how she could get annoying fast, especially if you're not digging what you're watching. She's probably like way more. If you didn't like this movie, you probably fucking hated Awkwafina in this because they give her a lot of time to do what she does.
But she wasn't comedic throughout though, which I enjoyed. Because
no, she there was growth for her, which is awesome.
I think if she was just that like 2-dimensional character and always just like the comedic relief,
Quippy.
I would have hated her. But like
Yeah.
meeting her family and like getting to know her and like having her own internal conflict was amazing for that character, and it really did win me over. And she like in those serious scenes, like when Shang-Chi decides like, oh, I'm gonna kill my dad, like her weight in that scene was really great, and his too. Like all of the performances, like even when it didn't work in those comedic scenes, like once they got to the actual like meat and potato scenes, like that's when like they really all won me over. Especially like the actor that played Wenwu, Tony Leung. He was amazing. That like Marvel's villain problem was not present in this movie, because like I believed his conflict. Like I love the complications of that family and that character, even though like he's definitely like deranged by his goal at the end. I believe it still, and like I love that. Like there's no like question with like the character's motivations like you have in other Marvel properties.
It honestly, I really liked him throughout, but the end of the movie felt symbolic of young people now trying to talk to their parents about things that they feel and believe that don't exist.
Yeah.
And they're scared shitless of them, and they want to take care of it, and we're trying to tell them you're wrong. That's not what it is, and it's incorrect on its face. And they won't listen.
Yeah.
Like that part of it, I felt like you could really project yourself into, like their actual conflict. And him going like, I gotta kill my dad. I was just like, holy shit. Like, yeah, that's the end game with how he's acting, because he's not listening. You can't deter him from the goal that he has. So you're gonna have to do the thing he taught you to do. Like I loved all of that with his father. Like that. And the actor was so fucking good, man.
It really did fuck me up when they said 1996, and then you find out that Shang-Chi wasn't born till a year or two later, and I was just like, oh man, I'm old, because I was born in 92, and like Shang-Chi's like what, 4 or 5 years younger than me. God damn it.
The actor's actually my age. He's 31, but they played him younger because he can. I think he effectively pulled it off.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely pulled it off. It's just like, oh, I'm so old now.
When he was laying in his bed and he like was waking up, I'm sitting there trying to do the math. I was like, so is he only supposed to be like 21?
Yeah, he's young.
Like, what is happening? But then I also thought, if it's post snap, they're in 2023 at least, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But Joe had mentioned when you meet Katie's family and like getting into more of the culture and stuff like that. I think they really did a good job with the pop music that they put into this movie, because it felt very on brand and on the culture. And then you like Shang-Chi's wearing like Jordans or something in like that final fight.
Yeah.
And when he's leaving his garage that he lives in, because it's not an apartment, there's a garage door there. He has the shoe rack by his door, and there's like a pile of fucking really nice shoes all over the place. And I just loved like a small detail to give you the like more into what that character is about, like culture wise. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Like we talked about even before recording, like we're just 3 white dudes like talking about it. So like this movie isn't geared towards us. Oh. But we could still appreciate what it did for that culture and for those people. And I love that. I love seeing the diversity and the almost entire Asian cast. Like, it felt nice that it wasn't a whitewashed film.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are like some issues I've seen online that like this, you know, it's not a topic that I feel extremely knowledgeable in, but like the choice to use Mandarin Chinese instead of Cantonese, that would actually, like, Cantonese is actually the dialect that they use in that city that they go to, but they chose Mandarin because Mandarin's like the like TM language of China, so like they're kind of like playing to the market in that way.
I could definitely see that being a frustration, but also if they want the movie that's based on Chinese characters to do good in China, they're gonna probably have to give it up to that.
Yeah, I understand the decision making. Like, I don't think Marvel was saying, like, you know, Hong Kong is part of China, or like, don't talk about Tibet. But I think they were just doing it for money reasons. But like, that's still frustrating in its own way. But on the other hand, like, I've also seen stuff talking about like the detail of it. Like, they weren't just like Google translating to Mandarin. Like, there's actual like nuances to the way they wrote it that doesn't come through in the subtitles. Like, there's a line that Wenwu says, he calls that old guy young man when they get to Ta Lo. Yeah. The actual translation of the words was, he says, "I've tasted more salt than you've had meals." And like, that was like a fucking like, oh shit. But like, if you don't speak Mandarin, like, you didn't get that like sick burn. So like, I love that like, this is like, it was a decision to keep those portions in.
Right. I love that it started off with the subtitles.
Yeah.
And then we got to English.
Me too.
And they even justified, like, they're only speaking English because it's part of, like, their, like, assassin training.
Yeah.
Which, like, you know, realistically, no, it's for the audience's benefit. But, like, I like that they weren't just doing it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
They built an in-universe reason for why they would be doing that, which is cool.
Because not giving a reason would piss everybody off.
Yeah.
So, but there was a quote from Simu Liu on what seeing an Asian superhero as a kid would have done for him. Yeah. And he said, "So I grew up ashamed to be Asian. I just hope that kids watching this movie will be proud instead." And that was shared on Instagram by a guy that I follow who does a lot of podcasts, Dave Chen, who does the Decoding Westworld podcast, which is like my only saving grace watching that show. But no, he's a really good reviewer, and he posted, I think, 2 or 3 videos of just explaining like how much this movie actually means to him, and then sharing the stuff from the lead actor. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really awesome, especially like right now when like Asian people are facing so much discrimination and violence. Even like putting a character on a pedestal like that is really, I think, good for people.
No, I think it's awesome. It's especially like needed after the year and a half that they've had to endure here,
and everything before that, but like definitely amplified now. But
yeah. But I think Simu Liu did like a phenomenal job and really won me over as like a driving force of the MCU going forward. Like, I can't wait to see him in more things.
Yeah.
And I never thought that a character like that would resonate so much with me, but it did. And I think that's really cool and really something special.
Like I said earlier, it's the actual story of it is pretty universal. It's just the different pieces that are involved with it after the fact. So I don't doubt more people are going to identify with Shang-Chi and want more from him. And I think, I don't know where you plug this character in the MCU, like where you see him next.
Do we want to talk about that first post-credits then?
I mean, we might as well. We're already here, so...
Yeah. Well, like, for one point leading into that, like, while I said, like, I liked how much this kind of stood alone, like, the snippets of, like, the tertiary stuff was very interesting to me. Like, why is Wong training the Abomination? Like, what the hell's going on there?
They're fixing fights. Wong and Abomination are fixing fights,
right? But they're like hanging out too. It was so
and
weird.
I think Abomination was like, he brought him back to like the raft or something.
Yeah, I don't like, there was like that like laser grid or something.
Yeah, it looked like a prison situation.
Yeah.
So Wong frequently breaks him out. They fight, make money together, and then he brings him back.
I saw a thing that said the last time that we saw Abomination, he was still in prison. It was confirmed in like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something.
Right, which like you can't even really like trust that anymore. But like even like the retcon to the character design, like giving him his gills like in the comic book.
Thank God.
Yeah, he looked great.
He looked awesome.
But like, is that character gonna come back? What the hell?
And will it be Tim Roth, or will they just like make him just CGI Abomination forever now.
Yeah, I feel like I don't think the Abomination goes back.
But I'm saying, like, will Tim Roth do like
be the
face
mocap
capture for it?
Maybe. I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah, I
think
don't know.
they should.
But yeah,
Anyway.
that post credits where Wong comes and picks them up, and then Carol Danvers and Bruce Banner in human form with his arm still fucked up from the snap are talking about a beacon from the Ten Rings. What could that be? Who are they calling? And like, I don't know if they're setting up like an MCU Defenders, which like on the one hand that completely just like wipes Netflix off the map, but like Hulk and Shang-Chi and I think Miss Marvel might have been an event or a Defender.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange, but like Wong could also be a Defender too.
But like the beacon was in there and the technology was over 1,000 years old, they said.
Right.
So what is it beaconing to that it would make it the Defenders?
I don't know.
I thought it was
Supernatural threat.
more of a beacon for space.
Right. It could be a herald. Who knows?
There's a lot of options, and I'm not even necessarily so concerned about like what it could be, but the opportunities for what they can do is so interesting.
I think the line about their age also teases to Eternals in a way. Like I feel like that might be a tie-in, and it could have even just been a throwaway that like many other post credits doesn't really pan out. To exactly match up. Right. But yeah, like I want to know why Bruce Banner's not in the Professor Hulk form anymore. Does that have something to do with She-Hulk?
Yeah, I feel like that's probably where you're going to get the answer for that.
I'm very excited about that because I'm glad that there's an opportunity to bring that character back to a more likable form.
I liked Professor Hulk. He was funny.
I did not. I was not a fan, but I'm interested to see what they do with She-Hulk, and I think it'll be explained in there. But having Bruce Banner welcome Shang-Chi to like the circus, so to speak, was a lot of fun. So like the idea of having him interact with other Avengers or just other characters in the MCU to me is exciting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even like at first I didn't even really pick up that it was Bruce Banner and not Professor Hulk. I was just like, oh, it's Bruce Banner. And then I went wait a second. So yeah, there's definitely explaining to do on that front for sure. But yeah, just having him around, like he's gonna be super beneficial to have around, I feel like. Because the Ten Rings are so fucking powerful. Yeah.
They're like wholly new. Like they're the 10 rings from the comics in name only. Because they were like literal rings in the comic that just did like magic shit. But like the way they reinvented them was so cool. And even just the different ways to use them. Like his dad, because of the way he is, just used them brutally and with just raw power. But then Shang-Chi's able to use them in, I don't know if it's an intended way, but like the more fluid motions and like the style of fighting with them was so cool to see.
I love that he's able to use them for propulsion.
Yeah.
He's able to use them to punch harder. Yeah. He's able to use them as projectiles and get them back. Like they can really do anything that he needs them to, which it's just like such a fucking interesting concept.
And that all being said, the title doesn't make much sense because we don't really find out much about the Ten Rings.
Yeah, we don't learn the legend of them.
Unless the legend of the Ten Rings is about the organization and not the physical rings. Because there's that line even when he gets to Ta Lo and he's talking to his aunt and he says, well, what does this have to do with the rings? And she tells him a bunch of stuff about like the soul suckers, but we don't really find out what it has to do with the rings besides that they're powerful enough to open the gate.
That was the only explanation that they gave, which I guess is a stretch, but how do we know that they're the most powerful thing that could open the door? Like how is that knowledge amongst everyone?
I'm sure it's on a scroll somewhere in their You know, 10 rings, super strong. All of Tao Lo was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah,
and like the callback to the pathway being like obscured and all of that was really fucking neat.
And the map to the pathway was so cool to look at. Like just that whole effect of the water filling the room.
Yeah,
the little
so cool.
The little thing with no face and two asses was like a little.
Yeah,
I almost reached my limit with that, but
all of the characters, like all of the monsters or whatever you want to call them in that, the creatures, the mythical creatures in that, I believe that they're all based on traditional.
Yeah, there was like nine-tailed foxes, foo dogs. I don't really know about like the dragon horse things or the wing thing, but
I honestly, my first impression as they were driving through, it was like, these are a lot like Pokemon, and then I went,
yeah,
oh, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, but yeah, they are all based on like mythical beasts from Chinese lore.
I'm glad that you brought up that little creature monstrosity thing, because while cute,
my boy,
it's probably only there to move merch, and it was used as a comedy plot device to bring back Trevor Slattery.
I screamed in the theater when he turned around. I was so happy. Oh my god. And like I heard somebody like 2 rows behind me be like, who is that? Because that's like, you know, a younger audience is now like coming up who like, you know, not everybody's seen Iron Man 3. A lot of people don't like Iron Man 3.
You gotta watch it. Like,
it's still a good movie. I don't care. It's just a different genre, but well, that's an episode like, for another time.
Oh my god, he stole the scene so much where he's like, they wanted to kill me, but they saw my hat, my Macbeth.
Macbeth.
Now I do a gig every week.
He's their fucking, and she even points out, you're their jester.
Yeah.
See, it was funny, but then at the same time, the more I thought about it, the more that just bothered me. Because like, why would they just keep him around because he did Macbeth? I don't know. To me, that's just like.
I didn't have an issue with him popping up. I thought it was funny, especially that scene in like the cave that he's living in.
Yeah.
I didn't like that he was in the car.
Okay.
That's what I mean. They just kind of like,
and then like I was like, all right, fine. He's in the car. He's the only thing that can communicate with Morris. That's fine. And then he gets out of the car and he's like on the front line with the fighting. I was like, all right. Now we've reached critical mass with Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery. We should probably just retire. He should not have been out there in the suit and ready to. And then to circle back at him at the end, he's pretending to be dead.
Yeah,
I was like, dude. And it was funny, but I was just like, I want to spend time with characters that we're here for.
Now. That's fair.
This is the action part. Let's just focus on that.
Yeah. But I mean, all told, like I was not upset that he was in it,
or in the training montage when he's like refereeing the game.
God damn it! I appreciate that they took that head on.
Yeah,
yeah. It was at that point when he showed up that Katie became she transferred the comic relief power to him.
Right, and then she
from
became
that
more
point
serious.
of the film.
Yeah, that's fair. So we don't get Katie's growth as a character unless Ben Kingsley's in it, Jordan. Yeah. So you got to take the good with the bad.
Funnily enough, when she got handed the bow, my roommate leaned over to me and she said, "Is that Kate Bishop? Because her name is Katie and she's shooting a bow." I was like, "No, they already cast someone else for her."
That's
funny as fuck.
How would you guys feel if that was like the Kate Bishop that we come to know?
I wouldn't hate it.
Like, I wouldn't hate that either.
I'm not married to that character. Like in my head canon. Yeah. So it's not like it doesn't bother. It would not faze me at all if they were just like, oh yeah, Awkwafina is Kate Bishop. I'd be like, okay.
But I will say I was not a fan of how all of a sudden she was just like, oh yeah, I'm really great with a bow.
It was a little bit of a Mary Sue thing.
It felt incredibly rushed, and I wish there was something else in there.
I'm sure once we get a release of this with deleted scenes, that there is probably an extensive training session with her and the older guy. The two of their chemistry was very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the gate falls and he just says, "Don't die."
Yeah, like I really liked those two characters together, so I'm sure they probably have something that they had to back burner to get some more information in there.
That's
but
possible.
still, it's like she had an extra 5 minutes to learn how to shoot a bow and arrow.
Yeah, 'cause
like
they were
at
only there
least
for,
they
like, a
had the
day.
car stuff and the driving stuff set up so nicely, and then it paid
yeah.
off when she's driving the bus.
Yeah.
Or like when she's driving through the maze in the forest. But there was no mention of like, I'm an
she's an expert
archer. I
marksman.
have really good hand-eye coordination. Like, I guess that's like the stretch that you can get to, is she has good hand-eye coordination because of the driving. But still, it's kind of a stretch for me.
For sure. Yeah, she just kind of picked it up. And really, she only fired one.
Yeah.
And it was at a gigantic target. So, like...
And like it was like a kill shot basically, and she could see that it was a kill shot from where she was standing, and she was like, wow.
Maybe she just assumed because of how it reacted that it worked.
Yeah, good point.
She was probably like, oh wow, that thing's flailing, I must have fucking nailed it.
What did you guys think about that final climactic
Dude, that was
fight
wild.
scene between Tolo's dragon and this
the
mythological
mega sucker
creature that was sort of inspired by Fing Fang Foom?
Was it?
There was no mention of Fing Fang Foom. It makes me really upset that we didn't get a name drop of one of those dragons being Fing Fang Foom.
Fing Fang Foom's a little... it's a bad name. It's a pretty problematic character.
Yeah.
No,
so
I think the name
understand
is
them
terrible, but...
But the design of this like dark creature or whatever was inspired by the design of Fing Fang Foom.
Okay. Well, he wasn't wearing big
So-
purple shorts, so it was lost on me.
The Tao Lo dragon, the Great Protector or whatever, the design of it was awesome.
Beautiful, yeah.
And it looked just like right out of Raya the Last Dragon. Like they're very...
Yeah, it was an Eastern dragon.
I like that I was able to watch that film first to get information on what those dragons do, because they all have different abilities and things that
So that
they're
was a water
good
dragon.
for. And then to go into this with more information like behind it. So I'm sure if you grew up and live in that culture, to then see these characters, you're like, oh fuck, this is awesome, you know.
Yeah, and it was a cool dragon fight.
Using the water
Awesome
as like a weapon.
I really thought at the end they were doing like an Iron Fist thing. When the Great Protector's soul is coming out, I was like, oh, is the dragon gonna die? But Shang-Chi takes its soul's power into him.
Right.
Iron Fist is a pretty problematic character too, of all the like white savior issues behind him. So like if they took that and like gave like, because Shang-Chi's not really a persona, that's just him. If they gave that superhero persona to Shang-Chi, I wouldn't personally have a problem with it.
No.
But it didn't seem like that's what they ended up doing. But I really thought
I'm glad that
might
you
have
brought
been-
up Iron Fist, because there were people when we arrive in Tao Lo that are wearing the green and yellow. And I was kind of like, are we going to like just peek into the possibility of doing that character correctly? And this being where you, because for me, that is where you bring that character. Like, that's how you pull that character into it if you're going to do it again, which definitely understand their hesitancy in bringing that character back.
Well, they even said in Tao Lo, like, there's other mystical places.
Yeah.
Right.
This is just one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So it could be like Kunlun could be like one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
places.
what Tao Lo is, it's a protective city thing. Like it's a village that protects a passageway.
Yeah, and it is in like another dimension.
Right.
So in that way, yeah. Or even like Kamar Taj and like Doctor Strange. Like so these places exist and they serve different purposes, but like they have different cultures and practices.
And they can all be
abilities.
connected if they want to take that step.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really hope that they do.
I wish there was like some kind of flowchart of like how things work in Marvel, because like first we had like Thor talking about different realms and like how do realms work? Are they in space? Are they in different universes or dimensions? And then now we have like these different universes through Shang-Chi, and then we have different timelines and like I'm like, okay, so like where does this all lie? Like what's the connective tissue here?
And Eternals makes it seem like there's different universes within different timelines. Like it seems so
But I think they've like been kind of like intentionally vague about that stuff so that they don't really have to give like a solid answer. But it kind of seems like with the kind of like light being shed on these concepts more, I think they have to give more of a solid answer soon. Especially just because they keep like making rules and then changing rules. Like all the stuff with like the Ancient One and her like timeline depiction, but then now that's all gone to shit. Or even in the like, we'll talk about what if once what if is all over, but they talk about that in the 4th episode. Whenever you listen to this, the 4th episode, they talk a lot about timelines and universes, but it doesn't necessarily work exactly the same as in the universe that we know, or maybe it does and I'm just misunderstanding everything. That was a big rant about universes that I don't think I actually reached a particular point on.
We're just saying, like, there's a lot of different threads that are open that aren't explained very well, and people just kind of say them.
Yeah. Words mean something, Kevin Feige.
That's not how time works.
I really like the kind of non-linear way we get Shang-Chi's backstory.
Dude.
Like, you get snippets, and, like, it's not necessarily like you're watching the same flashback play out, like, in different chapters throughout. You're watching, like, different points from his timeline that matter in that moment of the movie, which I really love, because that's how you work your brain.
And I love that the way in which they did it. Anytime someone was about to explain what happened, instead of listening to them tell you, we got to fucking see it.
Yeah.
And we got to experience the fucking flashback and where people were in that moment. And I thoroughly appreciate that. It's one of my favorite things about this movie is the flashback sequences and how they were handled. Yeah. Because it's always known that it is. And when it's over, you're like, wow, fuck, that's like so much information. That's so sad. And it's not just someone in a room talking to you. You got to experience the flashback, and that's so fucking important.
That also added so much weight to the one time it didn't happen, when like we saw the brutality of like when his dad went to take revenge on the Iron Gang, and like seeing like a kid have to witness that.
Yeah.
But then when he says like, I did do the assassination that I was sent to do, we don't see the assassination, we just see the effect it's had on him.
Yeah.
And that was like so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the way that they sparingly used the flashbacks. They didn't give us a 20-minute like flashback sequence where we watched all of these things happen. It's not like that was the prequel of the film that started the cold open. Like,
right.
They took their time, they chose their spots, and they made their moments count, so that way, when there wasn't a flashback scene to like see something, it had a powerful impact, like Joe said.
Yeah. It was almost like he couldn't bring himself to describe it in that kind of detail.
Yeah.
Because I would assume that the rest of them, as they're being spoken to other characters, are being laden with all of that information that we're visually getting. Right. So when it comes to him having to explain that he did, in fact, assassinate whoever he had to, he didn't want to talk about it still. So we didn't get to see how it played out and shit like that. It was super impactful because I was expecting a flashback, and then not getting it was like, no.
And then even with like Xia Ling, we really only get her flashbacks in perspective to his. So like we don't fully get to know that character. So her kind of twist in that final post credits really kind of hit, because he's operating like, this is my little sister that I knew 10 years ago, but she's a completely different person now that has her own motivations. So he says, oh, she's dissolving the 10 rings. And then we find out, like, no, she's not.
Yeah. Which I loved.
Yeah. Not only is she not dissolving the 10 rings, she's incorporating what she was doing previous into the 10 rings, which I thought was really fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that there's necessarily going to be any, like, conflict between him and his sister based off of what she's doing, because I don't know that he has an issue with what...
It depends what the 10 rings is now.
Yeah, and she had set up earlier in the film that, like, if her father's not going to give her the empire, she's going to make one of her own.
Yeah.
And then she accidentally inherits it and then winds up combining the two, which is fucking amazing.
And you know what, like, just occurred to me? Like, one that, like, I really loved how this kind of was, like, a better version of Emily Van Camp's turn in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I would like to kind of see those two characters go head to head.
Yeah.
If, like, the power broker came against the 10 rings for, like, a power struggle, like, that would be a fun story to see.
Yeah. That's 6 episodes on Disney Plus that I've
Yeah.
Hell yeah. How Joe said before, like, Shang-Chi, the entire movie is like, oh, this is my sister. And her character is a good representation of, like, change in people. Like, people you might have known a year ago are completely different. People you know 10 years ago are different. And it's fun to see that evolution grow, but how it affects those relationships. Mm-hmm. So now, the first time they see each other in the fight, which the entire time I'm sitting there going like, oh, they're going to do like the Altered Carbon thing where it's his sister showing up. But it was surprising because she just went at him.
Yeah.
She knew it was him the whole time and just went at him. So he's expecting this child, essentially, because that's who he remembers. But she's a different person now. And I love who she is.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a tired trope of the younger sibling, and particularly the sister who, like, was ignored and wasn't allowed to train. And then they get hardcore as they grow up. But it was still entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it was effective, I think.
And all the ways they, like, framed her were always fun. Like when she sucker kicks him and he just falls, that was a fun shot. And then when she finally gets to fight with her, I forget what those are called, but like the weighted rope blade thing.
Oh my god, yeah.
But like when it just drops at the
from
camera
Mortal
before
Kombat
she kicks
too.
it. So good.
Yeah. With the dragon scale on it. Oh.
Yeah.
So cool.
But yeah, I loved her costume. Like, it looked a little bit like Ronin-esque, like the character Ronin from the comics, and in Endgame, but that's fine. And I loved her whole facility. I wish we got more of that character John. But then it would have just been too much comedic relief. For the like short amount of time he was in, he was just a fun guy to interact with. And I loved all, like, that's another thing I really want to rewatch this for, is to find what Easter eggs I missed when they were walking through the different pit fights. Like, there was one guy with, like, extremis, it looked like.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's so much that I missed, but...
I was upset by the character that becomes the right hand of his father.
The Death Dealer?
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
He was teased to be a lot more.
I understand it to a point, because that's the character that basically helps to train him. And there's a moment in this movie, I said to myself, that's his fucking mother. Because I thought that they were going to Taskmaster it again. I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah.
Super glad that they didn't, because it's a bad idea, but it was like I was just like, oh, this is what the fucking reveal is going to be, because it's super fucking powerful. So it just seemed like it was going to fall into that trap. I'm so glad that it didn't. Yeah. But I'm upset that we didn't get more from that character, because it's the first thing that dies when those soul sucker things come out of the gate. Yeah. I really wanted them to kill Razor Fist very early and throughout. And
it really felt like those two characters should have swapped roles. Yeah. And I don't understand why that decision was made.
But I guess it was to show how serious the soul suckers are, that they could kill what we're supposed to understand as the most capable character on that field in that moment, and they instantly killed it right out of the gate. So you're like, all right, now what the fuck is going to happen? Because if it killed Razor Fist, we'd all be like, yay!
True. Yeah. Let's talk about that climax a little bit more.
Yeah. So one spot where it almost started to fall short for me was in that final battle when Shang-Chi has the 10 rings. It felt like a little bit like live action Dragon Ball-y, where he's just on a wire rig and doing Kamehamehas and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was, I don't know why, it just felt a little cheesy to look at, but it was, thankfully not drawn out. I liked when they were fighting back and forth, each with half of the rings.
Yeah.
And again, just the different ways to use the rings was really cool to see. It was just very end game, we're on the other side of the river and it's this stark battlefield.
Yeah, and I felt that way too at a point. I was like, man, this is really dark and gray, and the color palette's really bland. People have issues with that sometimes, but it didn't bother me. But I just noticed it, and I was like, wow, a lot of this movie was shot so bright and clean and beautifully. All the stuff in Ta Lo is normally awesome, and then it turned into this dark, gritty, burned down city. But I'm glad that they didn't really feature any of that in the trailers.
Yeah.
Because that scene, for the most part, between him and his dad fighting, and then the stuff on the dragons, all that really was cool.
Yeah.
And I think it made for a really excellent third act.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that sequence with him fighting his dad and taking some of the rings and then taking the rest of the rings was just super powerful, because just the symbolism of it, his dad's clearly at the end of his rope here, and he has to do what he has to do with it, man. It was super cool to see. And then I didn't expect him to ride the fucking dragon at all. I expected to see it because we see its face in that first trailer, and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. But I definitely didn't expect to see him riding it, because he wasn't necessarily commandeering the dragon. He was kind of also there to help it. It wasn't a situation where it was listening to him or anything like that. Yeah. It was doing what it knows to do, and he was along for the ride. But utilizing, like Joe had said, when he shot the fucking rings into it and was doing the spinning and all, that was brutal and gross, and could have been a lot more gross had they shown visceral but it was just great, because that whole time I'm just sitting there because there's so much visually going on, and it was just such a release at the end of that movie that when it's over, you're like, that was heavy, man. Holy fuck. I loved it. Loved that.
There's a lot of layers to this movie. We've talked about how you could pull so many different messages out of this. There's so many different people that could take something away from this movie. And that's when Marvel's the best, is when you could reach a wide net of people and reel them in, whether it's emotional, whether it's action, whether it's just snappy dialogue. This movie has it all, and I'm really excited to go back, rewatch it.
Yeah.
I know Joe mentioned earlier that there was some scenes where it kind of looked like Dragon Ball, so it gives me hope, because the entire time I'm sitting there thinking, we could have a Dragon Ball Z movie that could look like this, and it could be amazing. So I'm holding out
hope. As long as
they
don't whitewash it again.
Exactly. But this movie could prove, hey,
in the future,
look at what we can do if we take care and actually do things right.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the future of Shang-Chi in the MCU. I can't wait for another sequel. I'm really glad that they kept him and Katie's relationship platonic.
Oh, yeah.
And then I loved seeing them sing karaoke with Wong at the end.
It was so funny. It was so funny. Well, like in a movie of just like, there's a lot of heavy shit that happens.
Yeah.
And that final sequence is just like such a fucking like, dude, what? To get the laughter release in that sequence when they do karaoke with Wong was just fucking great. And I love that they were able to incorporate Wong to get another Asian American actor just like into the film as well. Like as many as we can, because it makes sense to bring him into it and then using him as the bridge. Like I love that.
Right. And he's a character we know, so he's a character automatically the MCU people relate to.
Yeah, we can anchor like where they are because of him. Yeah. And I love that.
And I like that he was more than just a cameo too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need, is because like those side characters in the other movies that you don't necessarily think will affect the overall arcing plot. Wong's an Endgame. Like, Wong's been everywhere. Yeah. It's cool to see them thread other characters throughout their universe.
Well, Wong himself is even emblematic of, like, the work that this movie did with a character that came from very problematic origins. Like, Wong is, like, a really problematic character in the old and even some of the new Doctor Strange comics. But they were like, no, he's a hero in his own right here, and he's got his own character and motivations, and we don't have to one-to-one everything that came before, because of a lot of it was just wrong. Right. So being able to say like, yeah, we can, I don't want to say fix, because that's almost like it like legitimizes the stuff that came before, but like, you know, we don't have to throw everything out. We can reclaim that, basically.
Yeah, that's fair.
So overall, we all really enjoyed Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, but we want to hear from you. We want to know what you guys thought of the movie. So hit us up on social media at Pop Kannon. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and in our Facebook group, the Pop Kannon Collective, where we hang out and talk all the time. So make sure you're in there.
You can find us individually if you like. I'm Robert, and you can get me on Instagram and Twitter at Yesball.
You can find me, Jordan, on Twitter and Instagram at JL24FPS.
And I'm Joe. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Joe for Broke.
Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. You hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We are also available on your favorite podcast platform, including Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called now. I don't know. Whatever that Android thing is. But yeah, we're there. So just find us at Pop Kannon. Don't forget the K. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the very next episode. Stay tuned for more content coming at you very, very soon.